Yes, Michael Myers was a real person. He was immortalized as the iconic slasher after he helped John Carpenter gain a reputation in Europe. Here's the story. The idea for Halloween began when producer Irwin Yablans and Miracle Films film distributor Michael Myers were in Europe for the London Film Festival showcasing John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13. Although that movie didn't get any praise in the US, it was a huge success in Europe. Irwin Yablans and Michael Myers were able to recognize Carpenter's talents behind the camera that they immediately wanted to make a movie with this young man before the studios found out about him. So on the return plane trip, Yablans thought to himself, it's gotta be a horror film. As he explored the idea, the plot started coming together. He came to the conclusion that it had to be about babysitters in jeopardy, being terrorized, and that it had to be done in one night. As he was brainstorming on this babysitter murder movie, he had an epiphany, a light bulb moment, a eureka moment. Halloween popped in his mind. Once the plane landed, he immediately got in contact with John Carpenter, setting up a meeting for the next day to go over this idea. Carpenter immediately signed on to direct, with Yablans reiterating the specific parameters he wanted for this horror film. The instructions were as follows. I want no gore, I want no blood, just methodically scares every few minutes. The movie had to be theater of the mind, as he puts it. This follows the rule that the unseen monster is scarier than the one we do see.
John is, from childhood, from earliest days, one of his passions was scary movies. And when he got his turn, he drew from the lessons he had learned watching these movies, and one of the cardinal rules is don't show too much of the monster. One of the oldest tricks in the book is to understand that it's not what you see, it's what you don't see that gets you scared.
With the criteria set, Carpenter got to work. He enlisted the help of Deborah Hill as co-writer, and they finished the screenplay in about 3 weeks. Using his background in music, Carpenter also took on the task of scoring the film. With the production ball rolling, they began the casting process. A green Jamie Lee Curtis took on the role of Laurie after their first pick actress Annie Lockhart passed on it. Prior to Halloween, Jamie Lee had never been in any motion picture and only had a small number of TV roles. Donald Pleasance signed on for the role of Dr. Loomis. Unlike Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance was already an established actor, so much so that in 1978 alone, he had 10 projects released, including Halloween, with an additional 10 projects released the following year. The movie completed shooting in about 20 days, with the cast and crew helping around wherever they could. The final product is an hour 30 in which the Shape escapes from a mental institution and returns home to murder Laurie and her friends on Halloween night. Halloween was released on October 25th, 1978. As an independent film, it was given a small budget of about $320,000. The stipulation was John Carpenter getting full creative control and having his name above the title. After its release, it looked like all the efforts were not going to pay off.
It was released in October, November of '78, and it wasn't doing great. And then Deborah called and said, looks like we bombed.
However, slowly and day by day became clear how much of a success the movie was. As it turns out, word of mouth was so powerful that daily ticket sales increased exponentially. At the end of its run, it came in with a total of $70 million, making it the most financial independent film ever. The $70 million is a summation of the $47 million earned domestically and the $23 million earned internationally. The movie has a runtime of 91 minutes and is categorized as horror and suspense with an R rating. Critically speaking, the movie was well received. On IMDb, it currently holds a 7.7 out of 10 rating. The Metascore lists it as a universal acclaim with a score of 90. On Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' score is an outstanding 96%, while the audience score is at an 89%. Siskel and Ebert both enjoyed the film. In the broadcast review, it seems as though they've been grading negatively horror films at the time, not because they hate horror films, but because the movies coming out were simply not good. In the published text, they say it's a terrifying and creepy film.
Okay, that's Halloween, a horror movie we both think is pretty good.
Very good.
One of the things a short scene can't show you is that Halloween is directed and acted with a great deal more artistry and craftsmanship than the sleaze bucket movies we've been talking about. I believe that in the case of a movie like Halloween, we can engage in that joy of filmmaking that you talk about. That's not the case with the other films that really address themselves to the lowest possible common denominator.
The lasting impact of Halloween is unparalleled. We got a low-budget B-movie of a guy in a mask for the most part just standing there, menacingly, yet even after 46 years, he's completely recognizable. I'm sure it's common knowledge now, but in case you weren't aware, the iconic Michael Myers mask is simply a modified William Shatner Halloween mask.
John sent me out to find the perfect mask, or to create the perfect mask for the movie, and it was simply to be a kind of a blank face.
It was originally written the way you see it. In other words, it's a pale mask with human features, almost featureless. I don't know why I wrote that down, why Deborah and I decided on that. Maybe it was because of an old movie called Eyes Without a Face. It's a French film.
As of today, 2024, there are currently 13 films in the entire franchise. Amongst them are a reboot and its sequels, a spin-off, that uses the same franchise name, but it doesn't follow the Myers storyline, plus a couple legacy sequels that ignore certain entries in the franchise, creating its own timeline. Halloween also gets the honor of being called the first modern slasher, although inaccurately considering Psycho fits the description as well, including other movies that contained proto-slashers. Regardless, a conversation could be had. Comment below, I suppose. Finally, a look into the lead actors as well as the director. Jamie Lee Curtis was born on November 22nd, 1958 in Santa Monica, California. Jamie Lee plays our protagonist, Laurie Strode, who unfortunately gets targeted by the Shape when he returns home. Halloween is her first feature film. Afterwards, she starred in The Fog and Prom Night, both released in 1980. Donald Pleasence was born in Nottinghamshire, England on October 5th, 1919 and passed away on February 2nd, 1995. In Halloween, Pleasence plays the psychiatrist Dr. Loomis, who's searching for the Shape after he escaped the facility. Like mentioned before, Donald's filmography at this time was lengthy, so for the sake of brevity, they'll be displayed on screen. Director John Carpenter was born on January 16, 1948 in New York. Carpenter's directing career began with Dark Star in 1974, which was then followed by Assault on Precinct 13 in 1976. After Halloween, he directed The Fog, starring Jamie Lee Curtis in 1980, which was then followed by Escape from New York, that also starred Donald Pleasence in 1981. Thank you for watching, and if you liked this video, browse around my channel to see if there's another movie that you'd like to dive in. If not, here's another scary movie you might be interested in.